Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Kate, also known as the Daily Tarot Girl, and I'm joined by Will from the Atypical Tarot YouTube channel. And today we're going to be discussing the law of attraction. And this is actually the first time I've ever done something like this where we've done like a discussion on something in a live format where people could kind of jump in and comment. So I'm really excited about this. So I just wanted to say welcome everyone. And Will, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself or say anything.
No, not really. I'm excited for the conversation too. So I've gone live a few times, but not on discussions as much. So it'll
Yeah.
be interesting. It'll be interesting. I think it'll be fun. Yeah, I
I
think it'll
think
definitely be fun.
this is going to be an interesting one because, like we were kind of talking about before, before we went live, um, like I don't really have a formed opinion about the law of attraction. I've had, and I'm not super into the law of attraction stuff. It's something I'm familiar with. I've read multiple books on it. It's something I've experimented with, and I've had success and I've had failures with it. So I have direct experience with the law of attraction. I haven't yet formed an opinion because there's things I love about it, and then there's things that kind of bother me. And I know, Will, I think you're kind of in the same boat as me in regards
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah, there definitely are. I've been into it for quite a while. So even before like the book The Secret came out and it kind of went mainstream and people started really looking at it, I was looking at it. I actually was looking at it as a member of a church. I went to a church that was big on law of attraction, even though they weren't calling it law of attraction. It was, looking back now, it was very much that. So that kind of formed my initial opinions on it based on what was happening with the congregation, what was happening with the pastor, and kind of seeing that whole thing play out and being a part of that and kind of giving my money and seeing what they were saying about how that law would work as far as my faith was concerned, and trying to just work with that for years. I worked with that for years to see what would happen. And there were days where I would give money and I thought, well, you know, should I pay this bill or give this tithing? And the way the church would present it was, if you show that faith, if you show the internal, I guess, fortitude to look at money as just energy or something that really you shouldn't be worried about, that would actually manifest as you receiving it because you're seeing it in a different way and you're not really worried about it. You're showing that, hey, this is just money. I control it. I have the ability to make my finances work for me. And I understood that, but I wasn't seeing that play out with people. I mean, I know people that still go to that church and they're still, not rich. I mean, they're still, they're trying to get
Yeah.
money, but they're still basically broke. And so my
Is
question is,
that
what are
called,
the things that are missing?
sorry,
Mhm.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was done.
Is that called prosperity gospel, would you say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It was sort of the prosperity gospel thing. And it was like this huge mega church.
Yeah.
And the pastor was very rich. And so people were looking up to him as, wow, if he can do it, I can do it. So it was just very inspirational in that way. And then
Right.
years and years went by and I just shifted away from that. But that's kind of where it initially started.
Okay. What year would you say that was for you? Like how far before The Secret came out was that?
Well, before I heard about The Secret, I'm not sure when The
Okay.
Secret came out, but before it started becoming like a mainstream thing, I
Mhm.
was in this church in about 2003. And I heard about The Secret in about 2010, 2000. I can't remember exact date.
Oh, okay. I feel like The
Mhm.
Secret, I mean, this is Googleable, I guess, so I should probably just
Yeah.
Google it and see what
Yeah.
I feel like The Secret um came out in like 2001,
Mm,
2002. Let's see. Oh, The Secret, the book came out in 2006. Okay.
okay.
And then I don't know if the movie came out before or after that, but I guess it was around the same time, I think.
Yeah. The
Okay.
movie must have came out a little bit later, and that's maybe when it started becoming more popular.
Yeah.
And I latched onto that thinking, what is this all about? And trying to change my mind state to one of, okay, law of attraction, try to think positive thoughts, try to have positive feelings, try to vision my life a certain way. And I did that. It's tough. I think the process, the way it's laid out seems simple, but actually doing it on a daily basis was the challenging part for me, because the way you have to do it is you have to really visualize, feel these situations internally. You have to, even the things you say can affect what you attract, according to some people. I mean, different people have different opinions, but that was what
Right.
I was learning.
Okay.
And so I felt like very cautious. So for example, if there was someone on the street that was asking for money, and I said, "Oh, I'm broke right now. I don't have any money."
Right.
How does that affect me? Is that negating my ability to attract because I'm saying something? I'm saying
Right.
I don't have money. Even if I have some money at the time, I'm just saying it because, I can't give right now or whatever. It's just kind of a way to, you
Mm-hmm.
know, you're in a hurry and you say
Sure.
things, and we do that all the time. We say stuff like I'm tired or I'm sick or,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And how does that really manifest? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you say you're tired all the time, are you going to get more tiredness? Are you going to get is it going to go down this rabbit hole of
Mm-hmm.
fatigue? And
Yeah.
so those kinds of things are where I have the questions about the law of attraction, because I wonder, where does all that start and what
Mm-hmm.
effect do all these things have? On what level do your thoughts play a role? What level do your emotions play a role? What level
Mm-hmm.
does visualization play a role? Which of these things are
Yeah.
having that overall impact? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you first discovered law of attraction with like the church and prosperity gospel, and you did that for a while. It didn't really do a whole lot for you. And then you discover the secret. And so you get back into it with that. And you find that that also doesn't do a whole hell of a lot for you. Or did you have some successes at some point?
I didn't see anything. Like
Okay.
I didn't see any big differences. I just saw more my effort of going to
Mm-hmm.
work, doing the day-to-day things. That was bringing my income. But I
Okay.
didn't see it as this effortless thing. Like you sit
Yeah.
down and you think about these things coming into your life and they just appear.
Right.
It's always been work for me. It's always been, hey, you got
Yeah.
to do these things. And but the way it was kind of wrapped in this package early on for me was, oh, you can make these things happen by, doing these separate things, and these things will come way much easier. But that just never happened for me. So it's
Yeah.
always been, okay, I've done these things, but what am I doing? And I'm not saying a law of attraction does not work. I think it absolutely works. I think there are ways of doing it, but I just don't understand the mechanism. And I have not seen in my life with myself or with other people an actual example of this thing actually happening. I mean, I've seen people write books or talk about it with speeches or whatever, and their lives seem okay on the surface, but I don't know the details of their life. I
Right.
don't know what's really happening. And yes, they may be wealthy, but maybe it's because they're selling a bunch of books about law of
Yeah,
attraction. Everybody wants to know their secret.
exactly.
So, right, of course, like the pastor at my church was very wealthy. I mean, because everyone was paying tithing. So it's like, okay, is that your tool for your
Yeah.
manifestation of work? But what about everyone else?
Yeah.
So, it's like this weird scenario where,
Yes.
mhm,
Yeah. And I think that the law of attraction is such a sexy idea that's easy to sell to people because people want to believe it so badly because it's a nice idea, I think. So there's something very empowering about um believing that we have this kind of control over our own lives, and there's something like I really really want to believe in the law of attraction. And I think
mhm,
most people probably do, and I think that's what
yeah,
makes it such an easy to sell idea. And I want to say like kind of how I discovered the law of attraction and everything, but first I just want to read a couple comments in the chat. So Allison says, I have a love hate relationship with the law of attraction. I can understand that. And let's see. Oh, Moira says, how does the law of attraction differ from spell work or prayer, or is there no difference? I think it's pretty similar,
mhm.
especially spell work. I don't have a lot of personal experience with prayer. I feel like it's really similar.
I think that it's similar, but I think spell work and different rituals give you a framework to really help you establish that the focus of whatever your intent is, and they give you something to really ground that those thoughts and images in. And I think that makes it a little bit easier, because as we go about our daily lives, if we haven't made that commitment to some sort of action that we put out into the universe, it kind of becomes this battle of, you're at work, you're talking to people, you're saying things that may negate how you actually want your life to turn out. You're just having a conversation, and someone may ask you about something, and you may say something very contrary to what that spell was, but that does root it, I think, in the universe. I think that's the intent of it, although it's more to it than that. But I think it just takes it a step further than just visualizing or thinking about it. Someone said, Tammy, I think it's Gaherty, I can't pronounce it, but I think it's just an attitude. It feels better to feel and be positive than to be pessimistic and negative. It's a frame of mind. Yes, I'm going to push back on that comment for just a moment, because not for everyone. I think it helps me to feel negative sometimes to deal with my shadow. And that brings out positivity. To just shut off my frame of mind and say, I'm going to be happy all the time. To me, that's not dealing with the root core of my problem. I need to go into those places and feel pessimistic. I need to vent. I need to be negative sometimes. And there's nothing wrong with that human emotion. And that's one of the issues that I've had with law of attraction, is it feels like when someone is not living up to that attitude of, I got to think these positive thoughts, I got to make these positive visuals, that we hit them over the head with this hammer of law of attraction and say, that's why your life is bad. And it's like, no, it's not. I
Yeah,
don't think it
you're
is.
not the right vibration.
Right.
Your
Right. Yeah.
vibration's wrong.
Raise your vibration, and it's almost like this way of just, it's this kind of toxic positivity that just sort of shuts people off, because you don't want to deal with their core problems and issues. And you just want to wave them off like, hey, you know what? It's your problem. You're doing this to yourself. So go away. I don't want to help you. I don't want to deal with it. And I think that that is one of the main things that bothers me about the law of attraction when it's used in that way. I think the law of attraction is a wonderful, beautiful thing that can totally be helpful. And I don't want people to get me wrong and think I'm trying to trash it. I'm not. I just think that when it gets into the mainstream sometime, the purpose becomes distorted,
Oh, I can't agree more with you on that, Will. And I do think, like, the concept of the law of attraction, I think it probably does work. I think there's a lot of truth to it, but I agree with you that once it kind of gets into the mainstream, it gets twisted in weird ways. And
Mhm.
I think the version of law of attraction that we see now, to me, seems so tainted in so many ways. Like, just when I'm listening, like, there's a lot of sort of new agey, self-helpy kind of influencers and stuff like that really promote the law of attraction stuff. And whenever I listen to it, it to me just feels like a grift. Like, I just
Yeah.
kind of get frustrated. I'm just like, there's just no, I don't know, there's no substance to it
Yeah.
or something.
You know, One of the things I get it, because I'll click through, like, I don't even, I know the videos not to click on. I can see it in the thumbnail. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's because when I started out with that church, it was all about prosperity.
Hmm.
And one of the things that kind of turned me around from that, and as I started, reading about this whole idea of law of attraction, even after that, was this idea of, is that what it's all should be about? This whole, like, I want this, that, or the other thing
Yeah.
so that I can be happy.
Hmm.
So that happiness is what I find is what people are wanting, but that's not going to bring it. So it's, where does this happiness come from? And I
Okay.
think,
Sorry,
mhm.
go ahead.
Yeah, no, 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 go ahead.
That was it.
No, I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, I was, but then I was like, I don't want to interrupt you. You're
Oh,
on a
okay, okay.
thought. Sorry, I just
So no, it's just, where does this happiness come from? And also, where do you start? What's the starting point? What are the things to clear up first? You have to clean some things out. I think we have to become disillusioned before we even get on the law of attraction bandwagon. I think you have to get into that high priestess mode and go inward. get to that shadow, that root thing, find your true will, and then manifest. It's almost like the high priestess should come before the magician card, in the
Mm,
tarot. It is this thing where you have to get to that core of who you are, what you really are, before you even start that. Because that's where I think people are cutting off that line. They're like, oh, I see these things that I could have in the world and I can manifest them. And I'm going to pursue that. And that's going to make me happy, when really what's going to make them happy is internal.
right.
And that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm pursuing right now, more and more each day. And that feels way better, Kate. Way better.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm just noticing in the chat, there's a really good question. So Rachel
Mm.
says, have we defined the law of attraction yet? I think it would help because there seems to be multiple definitions. Yeah, and that was actually Rachel. That was number one on my note sheet about what we're going to discuss. Define
Mm.
law of attraction, but we just jumped in
Right.
there.
Right,
So
right, right.
so law of attraction, it's kind of tricky to define, but I think basically for me, my understanding of the law of attraction is um, that what you well there's I feel like there's different little like tenets of the law of attraction, but basically it's this idea that you can attract things to you and manifest things in your life based on what how you think. Basically your thoughts can become things, so focusing your mind and being able to visualize and uh, think certain thoughts as well as have certain feelings to accompany those thoughts, and believing something is possible is going to then set you up to then experience that thing or draw that thing to you. Is that your
Mm.
understanding of it, Will, or do you have a different?
Yeah, some people put affirmations in there as well. So what you say as well as what you think.
Mhm.
Not everybody does that though. But it is a subconscious. It's something subconscious. It's not really in your conscious mind. So you're
Mhm.
trying to get things into your subconscious to manifest, because that's where it's going to manifest, in the subconscious. But some people think the subconscious responds better to visualization and emotion and not so much words. But it just
Mhm.
depends on the person. But basically, like you said, Kate, it's all about trying to bring things into the world based on your thoughts and your feelings, and trying to have that high vibration so that you can attract that high vibration. So what you
Right.
put out into the world, you get back. So
Yeah.
like if you put out negative energy, you're going to get back negative.
Right.
Um,
I
but
just
okay.
haven't seen that in practice because I can think of some like horrible people that have had a lot of success and really lovely people that I don't think are putting out bad things into the bad vibrations, like some really lovely people who've had all kinds of tragedies
Right.
happen in their lives. And so for me I'm like, that kind of made me question it. But I
Yeah.
first sort of discovered the law of attraction much later than I think you did. Like I
Mm.
think it wasn't something like this idea that you can manifest things or attract things never it just wasn't in my realm
Mm.
until so I know The Secret came out in the early 2000s or early to mid 2000s, and everyone was super into The Secret and vision boarding, and there's all these like vision boarding workshops and everyone was really excited about it, and I just without even looking into what it was about I immediately rejected it just because everyone was into it. I think that was like the
Mm.
only reason. So I do that with movies too. And everyone's like really into a movie. I'm just like, I'm not going to watch that movie. And then I will eventually watch it like 10 years later. So that's what
Mm.
happened to me with The Secret. Like at least 10 years, I think, Pat. Well, maybe not 10 years, but I didn't really watch The Secret or even become aware of what it was until a few years after it had come out. And I really liked the idea. I also got excited and I was like, ooh, I like this. I love this so much. And I felt really inspired by it. And I remember this would have been the early, this would have been like 2008, maybe
Mm.
2008, 2009 ish, 2010 ish, maybe. And I needed a job. And at the same time that I was discovering the law of attraction stuff, I was also kind of interested in Wicca and doing spells and things like that. And so I did this spell to manifest a job. and I was so specific in this spell about what I wanted. And I was so
Mm-hmm.
specific that I thought, there's no way that this is going to work. I'm being way too picky, but I'm like, I'm just going to try it and see what happens. And I didn't really believe that it would work. And so when people say like, oh, you have to believe that it's going to work in order for it to work, I don't know if that's true because I didn't believe that this would really work. So I did this spell and I wrote like a poem and I made it like rhyme. And I wanted to manifest a fitness job because I just finished my personal training certification. So I wanted to work in that field, but I didn't really want to work in a gym. And so I wasn't really sure like what kind of a job I wanted, but I had some like specifics. And I did this spell, and 2 days later, I was flipping through my newspaper and there was a job posting for exactly what I was looking for. And I was like, oh my God, this is too creepy. This is too eerie.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up applying for the job and immediately getting it, even though I completely bungled the interview. So I actually showed up 20 minutes late for the interview because I went to the wrong address. And I thought, oh, I definitely don't have the job. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get this job now. I'm like 20 minutes late. And then I was just so stressed out in the interview because I was so late. I was sweating. I just
Mm-hmm.
garbled the whole interview, and I got the job anyway. Anyway,
Nice.
so I got
Nice.
so excited, and I was like, "Oh my God, this works! Like this really works. I'm a magical being with magical powers." So then I got to work thinking, "Okay, what else can I manifest? What other spells am I gonna do?" And so there's a bunch of other things that I want to do, and none of my spells were for. I don't think it was like physical things. It was more like related to like opportunities I wanted career wise and things like that.
Right.
And so I got to work doing other spells, and none of them worked. Like I wasn't able to manifest anything that I put my mind to in at that time. And so then I was like, huh, weird. And what was interesting is that after that first experience, I was skeptical. And then after that first experience, I was like, ooh, I really believe in this. And then all of those spells that I did after that, when I had that belief that they would work, they didn't work. So I just
Mm.
thought that was kind of interesting. So yeah. I don't know
That is
why.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So
No,
that's
I like that. That happened. Something similar happened to me, but no, I like that. Do you think that there are limitations to, like you
yeah.
said, you were writing down all the specifics? Do you think there's limitations, or do you think you could ask for like basically anything and try to attract anything?
Well, I think you could try to attract anything. I don't know if you would be successful.
That's what I'm saying. Do you think like, do you think certain things are just like, if you try to attract something that just doesn't seem very realistic, would you still get it? Because you were saying you didn't even believe that that job would happen,
Yeah.
that you would get that job. So to
Yeah.
you, that didn't seem like a realistic thing.
hmm
But how do we know that line between, okay, where do I stop with this manifest? Like, or do you even need to do that? You know?
I don't know because I've tried manifesting things that to me seemed very achievable, and I haven't been able to. And then
Mm,
but then I've been able to manifest like that job, which seemed unrealistic at the time. I wanted a really good paying job, and I wanted it to be in the fitness, and I wanted to work with groups, and I wanted it to be fun, and I wanted it to
mm,
be part-time hour. Like I had all these like ridiculous parameters, and I got it. And then I've
yeah.
tried manifesting very straightforward, achievable things, I think, and haven't been able to do it. So yeah.
Yeah. Someone said, yeah, isn't it too inconsistent to be a law? So yeah, because a law would be something like you put in X, you get out Y, Z. It's
Like
just
gravity or
like a math problem, right?
yeah.
Or like gravity, or just something where it should happen if you do that, and if you follow this prescribed method, it should work. So I see that because coming from a science background, I kind of think that way too. And then I think about these other things, like for example, there's also this idea of creating your own reality, like
hmm
using the law, like the law of attraction, not just attracts things, but it you can actually change your like how I perceive the world versus how you perceive the world. Is it different based on the law of attraction? And the reason why I say this is because If I'm trying to attract something and you're trying to attract something, what happens if those two things conflict? Like, we both want something to happen, but you want something to happen that's going to be almost the opposite, but we're still in the same space.
Right.
And does yours get negated and does mine go forward? Or do we just perceive things differently? Like, you see the world one way, I see the world another way. You see
Right.
what I'm saying? In order
Yeah.
to compensate for that flaw in the law, right?
Yes.
Let's say you
Right.
want a relationship to work and I don't want a relationship to work. And we're both manifesting this thing. We're both right on point with our manifestation. How does that play out? You know?
Right. Right. Or like you want one political party to win the election. I want the other one. Is
Mhm.
that kind of what you're saying? Like,
Yeah. Sort of a similar thing like with prayer or whatever. Someone's praying for rain and someone's praying for sunshine. Do they
yeah,
both
yeah.
get their prayers answered, but they just perceive the world differently by creating their own reality? So is it actually raining in that one person's
Oh, I see.
life and sun
Right.
shining in the others?
Yeah.
Or is it just one gets negated?
Oh, I guess one gets negated because I think that there's a reality, right?
Mm.
And then there's the reality you're experiencing and the one I'm experiencing. So I would think one gets negated. There's a bunch of comments here. Mm, okay. Yeah, there's something I was going to say about that. I've lost it. Sorry. I had a point that I was going to make and now I can't remember what it is. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, Will. That's a good question. I
I
think
don't know either.
someone's
I was
met, but I think what you said earlier, now I remember what I was going to say. Okay. I think that how we perceive things and what we believe, like our beliefs about what is possible and how the world is, like the story we tell ourselves about who we are, why we're here, and what kind of a world we live in. I think that that
Mhm.
does go a long way to how we experience that world. Um, and so I might have this really pessimistic view of the world. Like, this is a scary place. People are mean. Um, no one likes me. This is a prison planet or whatever. And then you might
Mhm.
have this completely opposite narrative about like people are helpful, people are good at their core, the world is just getting better and better each day. And I think that we might have different experiences based on what our view of reality is, but I don't know if we're necessarily it's because we're attracting those experiences or because we're noticing things. Like if I have this idea that the world sucks, I'm gonna when I go out in the world and interact with people, I'm gonna like notice everything negative, and then each thing will just like strengthen my idea, and I might not even notice positive things. I might just kind of brush those off
Mhm.
because they don't fit my narrative. And then you might do the same thing if you have this like really sunshiny, optimistic narrative and you go out into the world and interact with people, you might have that propensity to sort of ignore things that don't fit your worldview and exaggerate the things that do.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I agree with that. So my next question would be then, because you were talking about how we have these perspectives, and to me that would be maybe our programming, how we've seen the world from early on, right? The
Mm-hmm.
things that happen to us, the things that, because it's nature and it's nurture. We
Mm-hmm.
can't escape both things, right? So my point is, let's say you're a child, you're in an abusive family, you see a bunch of negative stuff going down, you're poor, you're hungry, you think the world sucks. That thought comes into your head. It's a program. Maybe the world doesn't suck. But
Mm-hmm.
for you, that initial programming, bam, comes into your mind. Is it your fault to now walk around as an adult and for someone to say, hey, cheer up, see the world beautiful, when you've already attracted all of this negative energy to you based on what the crap that you've been through? My question is, how does someone unravel that? Because I have a strong empathy towards people when it comes to what's happening to them in their lives. And I don't like to just say, hey, it's your perspective, dude, wake up. I don't like to say that because I know people have been through shit. And when you're going through stuff and you're at the bottom and you feel bad, it's hard to get rid of that programming. When your father or someone has said, hey, you suck over and
Hmm.
over again, and that's embedded in your mind,
Right.
how dare me to come back and say, well, hey, you think you suck, so that's why you're sucking. How
Yeah.
dare me do that? I don't, that's the problem I have, Kate. And that's why
Hmm.
I'm so passionate about that, because I genuinely do care about people. And I see this again and again and again. And I feel
Hmm.
bad because I see what's happening with their perspective and their law of attraction and the illusion that they've been told by the world. I see
Yeah.
that. But I don't want to tell them, hey, snap out of it, snap out of it.
Yeah. I think for
You know?
me, so my experience, I haven't like that, what you just described about, someone who's been, had a horrible childhood and been told horrible things. I haven't had that experience growing up, but I have experienced um, being told who I was. Like when you're a kid, your parents, your family members, your friends, your community kind of tells you who they think you are. Like I was always told like, "Oh, you're really shy," or you don't like people giving you any attention. You just want to kind of fade into the background. Like you're uncomfortable public speaking. You're not very smart. I was constantly told you're not very intelligent, you're below average intelligence, everyone else is a
Mm,
lot smarter than you, et cetera, et cetera. And as I got older, there was a point where and it was kind of around the time that I discovered a lot of the law of attraction stuff, and I was reading Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. And I had this shift in my mind where I thought, maybe all of those things that I've been told about myself aren't necessarily true. Or maybe they're a little bit true. Maybe they are true, but then it's also true that I am these other things as well. I don't have to like be stuck in this box, if that makes sense. So it's like
mm,
my mind opened and I'm like, and it wasn't about rejecting anything in the past, but it's like maybe it's also possible to experience a different side of myself. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but it's like,
mm,
um, because I think for a long time I was stuck in that way of thinking of myself as someone who wasn't very smart and couldn't, speak in front of others or whatever. And at a certain point when I was like kind of in my mid 20s, I thought, what would happen if I pretended that the opposite was true? That like I just started to make a little bit of room for that possibility. So I don't know if this can be applied to the situation you're describing if someone's had a horrific childhood, but I think it is. I think that you can say to yourself like, okay, my life up until this point has been awful and I've had all these bad experiences, but what if I was to entertain the possibility that in addition to all of this stuff being true, that also good stuff can come in as well.
mhm.
Um,
I agree with that. And that's not what I was pointing the finger at.
okay.
What I was pointing the finger at is someone saying, instead of someone saying you can change the way you think, right? And helping someone change the way they think and set up boundaries and all of this stuff. Just saying it's your fault. Stop playing the victim.
Right.
Snap out of it. I'm out of here. And, that's the problem. And then you don't give them one shred of advice or a perspective um, about how to get out of that situation or really want
Right.
to help them at all. It's
Yeah.
almost like this. Okay. Uh, I if you read a law of attraction book, that's great, right? This person's making all of this money from it. Their life is good.
Hmm.
Things are
Right.
going well for them. And you read the book, but and you try to put the things into place. Um, it's easy to sit there and blame yourself and say, hey, what am I doing? What's going on with the way I'm doing this? Why are all these bad things still happening to me? The person gave me these ideas of how to make my life better, but it's just not happening. I suck, right?
Hmm.
Um, you could say that, or you could be more positive about it and say, hey, I'm just going to keep trying and just move on. But the thing about it is, if the law of attraction truly works and someone's mastered it and they're selling a book and their life is great, if you've gotten to that point, do you really even need to sell the book? Like, couldn't you just give that information to people? Because if you can just simply attract stuff, what are you afraid of? Give it away for free.
Right. Yeah.
You don't need to sell it. You can just go out and money would just fall into your hands. Why
Yeah.
are you profiting off of it? Right.
Yes.
So
Right.
that is the question. And it's almost like it's this attitude of I got mine, I'll get yours. I broke out
Right.
of it, you got to get yours. I did it. I was successful. I manifested my mansion. I manifested my money. I manifested these blessings in my life. If you haven't done it, you need to think better.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
it's
horrible.
like
Really, when
it's
you think
like
about
okay,
it.
yeah, I'll think better. Okay, I get it. I suck. I need to think better. All right, yeah, the bird crapped on my shoulder and I thought bad about it when I should have been happy. Okay, yeah, I get it. It's almost like all right, let's stop beating people over the head with this stuff.
I think, okay, so I have a couple thoughts about that. And I think that, in a way, like telling people, like, oh, well, you're in a bad place because of how you think, and you just have to change your thinking. There's something that on the surface feels empowering about that because you're like, oh, I just have to change my thinking. Like, this is all my fault. Therefore, I have total control. I just need to shift my mindset. I mean, there's something that's like both almost empowering about that, but then also like you're sort of blaming the victim. But I think that oh God, lost my train of thought again. I think that, oh, okay, so I feel like this whole law of attraction thing, it's appealing to our specific culture because there's something so individualistic about the law of attraction and how it works, because and it kind of fits with that narrative of like rugged individualism, that like everything is down to us, and it sort of ignores the fact that we exist in a community. Like there's a context that we exist in. We're not just all on our own, I don't think we're just these islands and we just create our own reality and we're just like separate from everything. We're all interconnected. And so, how does that play into it?
um, how we're all interconnected, maybe like collectively manifesting. Is that what you're talking about?
E- um, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
E- Sort of.
May I say it again? Let me make sure
Yeah.
I got
Okay.
you right.
So, like, I think that this idea of law of attraction is like really appealing to most of us in this culture at this point in time,
Mm-hmm.
because this idea of like the individual, like everything's very individualistic. Everyone's sort of out for themselves in a way, or
Mm,
at least we're encouraged to be.
yeah.
And so I think this idea of like, oh, you create your own reality is like kind of, it fits with that really well.
Mm,
Um, and I'm just trying to think, how does it function if you're to sort of widen your lens and accept that actually we're all very much like interconnected, like in a web. I don't know what I'm saying. I guess I'm just saying that,
no,
yeah.
I I understand now, and I think that's again, if you go into the high priestess mode first, you'll
Hmm.
understand that connection, that
Yeah.
core connection that we all have.
Right.
It brings about a lot of empathy and understanding for other people, and you see the connection. You understand that hey, you know what? If they're not successful, I'm not. We're all connected.
Hmm.
Um, and it sort of makes you, instead of say, hey, I'm an individual here, I got mine, you
Hmm.
start looking at, hey, how can we do this? How can
Hmm.
we create something better?
Hmm.
Um, but like, I just don't see that as much. And
Yeah.
I feel like I get a lot of crap about it, you know,
Yeah.
but, you know, but that's how I feel. I'm very passionate about it. And I
Yeah.
just I feel like we live in a capitalist society where it's like, hey, I got to monetize this. I got to do that. I got to hustle
Yeah.
culture. I got to make this book. I got to, and I'm getting mine. I'm doing what I have to do. And I understand that because, you know, you have to survive here. The system's set up so that we have to survive in a capitalist society where we have to do certain things, right? You can't just talk about law of attraction and give the actual secret away for free without making a book and making millions off of it, because you got to live and eat, right?
Right.
So it's sort of mixed up in all of the illusion about what life is all about. So
Right.
what this world is actually about has been twisted and distorted, and we're kind of stuck in it, and we're seeing the way we survive in this world, I think, from a really skewed perspective of what it would be like if we thought of it as a collective and thought
Right.
of it a little bit differently. And so when I see stuff like, hey, you know, I manifested my, you know, million dollars or whatever, you can too, just by my program. It's
Hmm.
sort of like, damn it, you know, let's
Yeah.
fix everyone. Let's change our perspective of it. But, you know, I could be wrong, I could be
Mhm.
wrong, but that's just how I feel.
I don't think I disagree with anything that you just said. Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I'm noticing there's some interesting comments in the comment section. Okay. so so there's some good ones. Okay, so Corey says, to what extent does law of attraction factor in privilege? That's an interesting discussion point. We should discuss that one.
Hmm.
Um, and then also, I want to talk about, maybe after we talk about that, we can talk about. I'm curious. Well, this is kind of a completely different topic, but I'm curious, like, if as souls, if we come into each incarnation with kind of a plan of what our life plan is going to be, what we want to experience, and what kinds of challenges maybe we want to have in life.
Hmm.
If we try to manifest something that's completely outside of that, does that become impossible? Like, does your higher self stop you from manifesting something? Like, let's say you, and this is kind of an out there sort of topic, but like, let's say you come into this incarnation and maybe you want to, maybe it's just not part of your plan to be a super rich, famous person, but you're born into this culture and that's kind of what you want because a lot of people want that. And so you try to manifest fame and fortune and it just never works. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like, how that kind of intersects.
That's a good point. You fall into this illusion of what you think life is about, what you think happiness is about, and you try
Hmm.
to go that route by manifesting that in a way that doesn't fit your plan or your higher self's plan.
Yeah.
And, I thought of a scenario the other day. I was thinking, okay, let's say I could give someone the ability to do the law of manifestation perfectly and send them back in time. I say you can go back in time to any point in your life and you can use the law of manifestation to change your future. But whatever you change, it's going to have that ripple effect and you won't be the same person you are right now.
Right.
All of the things you learn from all those experiences, the relationship you have, your relationship might be totally different. Your where you live might be totally different. The things you've learned might be totally different. Your perspective and attitude, the way you're kind to other people, all that could change if you go back to this point in time and you manifest $1 million or you do something, that totally derails that. Would you
Hmm.
do it? You know?
Right.
And then you think about that and you think, okay, there were things in this life that I needed to learn. And it manifested in that way. And so it's that old saying of all is well, right? Buddhists say all is well, right?
Yeah.
Everything should be happening this way. But then again, tell that to someone that's hungry right now. It's like all is well, you have to learn that, nah, I can't do it. Or someone that's
Right.
lost a child, or I just can't, I can't bring myself to do it. Even though maybe on some spiritual level, I can't see it the way a deity would see it or the way the universe would see it. I just don't
Hmm.
have that perspective. I'm not going to fault myself for that. I'm not going
Right.
to sit here and be like, hey, that person's child died because, well, that had to manifest in their life. Oh, well,
Right.
they were thinking
Right.
of it, so it happened. So, yeah, I mean, I think most people wouldn't go back and change it. But at the same time, it's like you also have this perspective of people wanting things to change right now. So if you change something right now And like you were talking about with your higher self and how that's not a part of your plan, yeah, it could conflict because you wouldn't be that same person that you were supposed to be had you done that. But then we can't call it the law of attraction because it's
Right.
not working,
Right.
because it's not working as a law. It's
Yeah,
working
exactly.
as this, well, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So do you think do you think the law of attraction then works better for certain groups of people and not as much for other groups of people? For example, if someone is in like a wealthy class, will the law of attraction, is it easier for you to have success with the law of attraction if you already have money and status versus if you don't have anything?
Okay, well, if we go back to what most of the people in the comments were saying about your attitude, positive attitude, and all of this, I think you're more likely to have a good outlook if you're fed, got shelter,
Yeah.
you're not getting bullet shot at you. I think, you're more likely to be positive and have these things attract, right? So maybe it will be initially easier to get that going. But is that fair? Is that just for someone to be born in a situation where they're in a war-torn country and then later on, maybe they'll snap out of it, like we said, they'll have that mental shift, maybe they won't.
Hmm.
But to sit there and look at them and be like, comparing them to someone that grew up in a, utopian style home, that's not cool, right? I mean, you can't sit there and say, hey, I think bird shitting on my shoulder is positive and good luck, when someone else might be thinking, well, what other shitty thing has happened to me today? It's
Right.
like, I don't know, I just don't get that. And I
Hmm.
mean, I feel like I feel abnormal, but that's just how I think of it, right?
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of switch gears for a minute here because if we want to, like, I have a little note written down on my note sheet here, and um, I said, okay, so my note says, how do we separate the BS from the helpful when it comes to law of attraction stuff? So like how is there any way that we can make this law of attraction stuff work for us? Is there any way that we can, or should we just scrap it all together? Because I find, especially if I'm working on a specific, like in a, if I'm working on a specific project, using some of the law of attraction stuff, like being able to visualize myself completing that project and being able to feel like adding emotion to that visualization so that I start to train my brain to believe that this is possible. Like to me, that is like the most important step in trying to achieve anything, is to be able to believe that it's possible, because it's hard to, I think, to achieve something if we don't ever think that it's possible. So I think that's where like affirmations and things like that kind of come in, where we can work with those things to entertain the possibility and kind of believe that something is possible. I think that some of that law of attraction stuff can be helpful for doing that first step. Whether or not that's going to result in actually achieving that thing, I mean, is could be up in the air. But
So
what are
yeah.
your thoughts on that, Will?
Okay. So I think that we should not scrap the law of attraction. I think it works, but I think we need to balance our attitudes when it comes to judging other people.
Oh yeah, for
That's
sure.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think we are looking. It works. Like someone in the comments said, it works differently for different people, or different people are in just different circumstances. Not everybody's like us, or not everybody's like me. So I can't say, oh, you should be like me,
Right.
you know, based on what their life experiences is. So
Hmm.
I think that like looking at yourself, focusing on your lane, and not judging other people, but at the same time trying to put your energy out into the collective and
Hmm.
realizing that we're connected. I think that might be the way to go, instead of just thinking of you as like this guru that knows how to manifest, like I'm the manifestation master. Instead of thinking of it like that, just think of it as, okay, I'm doing these things, they're helpful for me. I'm not going to judge anybody else by what's happening, whether they are doing the law of manifestation or not. but I'm just going to try and put out helpful, loving energy,
Mm-hmm.
period. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because when it comes to other people, we can't look at them and be so judgmental. And I think that's what we do. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I have the issue.
Right.
But yeah,
That's beautifully said, Will. I love what you've said there. Especially about kind of, yeah, putting that energy out there to others to support and not having that judgment. I had a little epiphany or a brainwave as you were speaking, and it totally relates to what you've already said when you were talking about the high priestess. And you said, like, it's important, I think, to go inward and to know ourselves first before trying to manifest things. I don't know if that's exactly what you said, but that was kind of the
mm,
idea, I think. So the epiphany I had is that if we try to if we try to manifest stuff, um, I think first of all, if we don't do that step of the high priestess of going inward and nurturing the relationship that we have with ourselves and getting in tune with our own intuition, because I think that your higher self and your intuition is always communicating with you in terms of like nudging you in certain directions. And I think that at any given time there's something that's kind of calling to us, or we feel sort of pulled in a certain direction,
right,
and it might be in the form of just curiosity, or it might be in the form of like passion and interest. And if we
right,
follow that curiosity or follow those like nudgings, they can lead to some really interesting places. But with the law of attraction, what I see people doing, and this is maybe just a judgment on my part, but what I see a lot of people doing is trying to kind of fall in line with what's expected of us in this culture. Like, you want to manifest a bunch of stuff. You want a big house, you want a nice car, you want all this crap and like all this money and whatnot. Um, but I think that if most people actually went inward first and kind of asked, like, what do I actually want? And this isn't
mm-hmm,
an easy question to answer, I don't think, because there's so many things outside of us that are fighting for for attention. But I think that if we ask ourselves that, and if we kind of follow those like gentle nudgings and urgings of our intuition, we can actually create a really cool life for ourselves. And it might not look like that, ideal life that this particular society holds up to us. Like, it might look very different. um but I feel like that is almost more beneficial. Being able to do that for ourselves is almost more transformative than focusing on the law of attraction. Does that make sense?
perfect sense. So, one thing I want to look at here is on the chariot card, because I think
Mhm.
the chariot card is deep in the manifestation. So, on the
Mhm.
chariot card, what do you notice about the guy that's controlling the card? Like
That
he has those. Yeah, go ahead.
the man in the background on the chariot, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. What do you notice about how he's controlling the car? I mean, the cart, the chariot.
Well, I don't know, but I noticed that the chariot's a block and he's not going anywhere.
Okay. One of the main things that's skipped on that card is the fact that the chariot doesn't have any reins.
Ah,
He's not controlling it. Now, the other thing is if you look at the Toph deck, the guy on the Toph deck is also not controlling the chariot, but he's sitting there in a meditation pose, going inward, and the chariot's just moving.
mhm.
What this card is saying is that our ability to move forward in life, we are missing a lot of the things. So if you're controlling the chariot, like you see these external things and you're thinking, I'm going to go towards this material object over here. I'm going to steer towards all this money over here, or I'm going to steer towards this relationship over here. That may not be, like you were saying, what's best. But when you connect inward and you allow that internal drive to drive you forward, and that's why we have the saying love under will, is because you connect with your true will first. That will get you to the destination that you want to be in. So that is not always easy to see. And so the chariot on the top deck, he's connected to the high priestess card because it's connected to the moon,
Mm-hmm.
right? The chariot is connected to the moon card, because it's Cancer.
Right.
So it's connected to this idea that finding internal truth can be difficult, because if you look at the guy on the chariot, you can't see his face on the top system. He's got all this armor on, right? You can't see
Mm-hmm.
who it is. You can see it on the rider weight, but on the top system, you can't see who it is. And the reason why Lady Frida Harris drew it that way is because she says that once you look at that internal truth, you're not going to be the same. Because a lot of times what we find internally is very different from what the world teaches us, and it breaks that illusion. And so you can't look at the face of that and come out the same way. I found that in my life, as I've gone internal and looked at that, a lot of the things that I think I need to drop from my life, it's hard because we want to stay in that dissolution state sometimes because it feels good. And that's why we
Mm-hmm.
say love under will. Love under
Right.
will means that the passions that we have for life and the world around us, put it under your true will.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would be hard for me to just say, oh, I'm just going to sell a bunch of this stuff, or, get rid of this or that, because those are the things that we think that we need, that we're dissolution to drive the chariot towards. But our
Right.
true will take that chariot in the right direction.
Mm.
Um, but that kind of taps into what you're saying about what we're constantly bombarded with. But
Mm-hmm.
that armor that's around the guy on the chariot in the Toph system protects him from that. So he's in his
Mm.
own internal shell, but he
Right.
sees what his true desires are, and that's not going to have that effect.
Right. Right.
Um, but it's kind of a deep card. And
Yeah.
a lot of people just think the chariot's about, oh, manifest, go forward, take action. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's really about bringing in those polarities by
Mm-hmm.
going inward and
Mm-hmm.
then moving forward after you've done that. The chariot is set up in a position where he's taking those things that are protective of his true vision, his true
Mm-hmm.
will and power with him as he moves forward. So all of the media, all of the things that are dumped on us that tell us that this is what we need to be happy are bouncing off.
Right.
And he's able
Right.
to actually, manifest
Yeah.
truly and with love.
And that's so interesting how you connect him to the high priestess, because the high priestess, and it might be different in I'm just thinking of it in like the Rider Waite version. I believe there's one pillar that's dark and one that's
Mm-hmm.
light, and on the
Mm-hmm.
chariot there's the dark horse and the light horse. And I
Mm-hmm.
always think of that when I'm reading the chariot. I always think of those two horses as being like the conscious and the unconscious kind of are both pulling that chariot, and they kind of need to be on the same page in order to move forward. And if the unconscious part of us wants one thing, but we're not conscious of that, our conscious self wants another thing, we're not going to go anywhere. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
if you think you want this thing, but what you really want is this other thing, then it's going to be really hard to make that thing happen. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And I think it really puts into perspective what we're saying about, can it work in all circumstances? Like, if you want to
Mhm.
manifest certain things, why can't you do that? And that's because it's not matching with your true will, because you haven't done the internal work to figure that out.
Right. Right.
And so you're trying to go against what the direction that the chariot wants to go. Maybe you're pulling on one of the reins, or you're trying to pull on one of the reins in the wrong way. You're leaning too heavily on one side.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's just not working. And there's some things that
Right.
you need to look at. I know, like, same thing with like light and shadow. You know, I mean, I'm the type of person where I'm just going to say, if there's something that bothers me, I'm going to talk about it. And I'm not going to dwell in this love and light area of, oh, I'm so happy, love and light, love and light. I'm going to deal with tough issues and talk about things that are, not easy to talk about and that bother people. And the reason why I
Mhm.
do that is because I got to pull on those chariot reins equally. I can't
Right.
ignore my shadow. And I could be
Mhm.
wrong. I'm not saying I'm right about all of my shadow, but I have to deal with my shadow, both externally and internally, and process it, or else I don't make progress. I do
Right.
not make progress. I've done that before, where I always thought, okay, I want to be in love and light. I'm going to drop everything negative from my life and just deal with just the happy, high vibrational energy. And yeah, The chariot's just going on one side. It's just leaned over and it ain't going anywhere. It's just broken and it's just not moving because I'm not dealing with all the things I need to deal with. And I think it's hard because a lot of people don't want to hear certain things. And they
Mm-hmm.
give you that pushback and that friction. And that's
Right.
just the road. And you can get over the bumps in the road, right? If you're on that chariot, he's got those big tires on there. He can move, and that fire within you, because you have that passion. Like on the top system, the wheels are red.
Mm-hmm.
And the wheels are red because it comes from Gevurah, which is the Sephiroth that deals with Mars energy. And
Yeah.
so it's that power that's moving it forward. But that comes from your internal strength after you have your true will. And when you know with the passion about what you feel, and that gives you that fuel when you know what that is. That will
Right.
drive you in the right direction. So, yeah.
Monica says, I have heard we manifest more from our subconscious. I think that's true. And she says, that's why the high priestess way of going within will maybe work better than affirmations that our subconscious thinks is a lie. Yes. And I know, and I know that experience, like being told to write affirmations and then repeat them, even if we don't believe it to be true, has always felt so weird to me. I don't know if you've ever tried that, Will, like affirming something that just doesn't feel real to you at all. It's such an
Yeah.
uncomfortable feeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that too. I agree. I think that um, it's one of those things where, you have to kind of learn that. The subconscious mind, to me, I mean, people talk about manifestation. They say, okay, well, you can think thoughts, you can say affirmations, or
Mm-hmm.
you can feel emotion. But I think there's a hierarchy to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the hierarchy is because when we're dealing with the subconscious mind is a lot older. It's a lot more ancient. And the
Mm-hmm.
subconscious mind deals better with visuals and with emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Like language is more modern, but we've
Right.
always had feelings and thoughts and images, and it can
Yes.
deal with those things. But when we're dealing with like the things we say or the things we write, I think it's a little bit different. And I think that's why vision boards might be very helpful. Even like when you're doing a spell or something like that, and you have this visual image of what you want or what you desire, and you put things out, I think that helps to get into your subconscious because you're visualizing it in a different way.
Right.
But I mean, so I don't mind like affirmations too. I think that thoughts can create images as well. But I think it goes from the thought, it goes from the image, it goes from the words to the thoughts to the emotions and images in that order. So I think the highest forms are the emotions and images, but those can come from the words and from our thoughts and then filter down and we form images and emotions from that. And the images and emotions I think can sink into the subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
that's just my perspective on it. So yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes a little bit more sense too, because I think that if it was more thoughts and words, I think I'd be totally screwed right now because of the things that I say and think
Yeah, yeah, me
sometimes.
too. Yeah, I agree. um, I'm just gonna read a few comments here. Let's see. Allison says that unconscious half includes those programs we need to dismantle. Because, yeah, I think that our unconscious part of us, or you could say your sort of inner high priestess, includes, I think, the things that we truly want and the things that we are meant to go after and manifest. But it could also, I suppose, your subconscious can include, yeah, subconscious programming and beliefs that aren't helping us too.
Yeah, that's a good point because a lot of things get stored in the unconscious
Hmm.
or the subconscious mind, and that includes things we repress,
Hmm.
things in
Yeah.
our childhood, or things that are like stuck in our childhood that have been programmed or that are like running as a background program. It runs whether we work with it or not. I think that the law of attraction is running constantly, but if we are aware of it and know our true will, we can take some sort of control. But I think there are
Hmm.
limitations. But I think that even when we're young, it has to be running. It has to still be going.
Hmm.
Otherwise, nothing would be happening around us. I don't think. I don't think,
Right.
I mean, I think that everything happening in this world is running off of like just subconscious energy. And so when we're walking around in the world and we're seeing things, there's something happening, whether whether we're conscious of what's going on in our subconscious mind or not. I think
Right.
it's just going. I think it's part of just like the wheel of fortune, you know, wheel of fortune card. It's just going to happen. The ups and downs in life, and that wheel just turning. It's just going to continue to turn. But I
Right.
think that at some point we take control of it, and we can use that in a way. Um,
Mhm.
Actually, I wish I could put the image up, but if you look at the magician card on the top deck and
Mhm.
you do an overlay of the wheel of fortune,
Yes.
if you look at his position and how he has his hands on there, and you overlay the wheel right on there, it looks like he's actually turning it, right?
Oh, okay.
I've seen people put that image up, and I thought,
Yeah.
wow, that's really interesting. You can just look at that. His hands fit right on the wheel in both places, and you don't have to
Oh,
enlarge or
wow.
shrink or anything. It's
Yeah.
almost, and and the colors are the same. The way the lightning comes down is the same. It's a beautiful thing to overlay, and it kind of has a strong message of, um, that ability to have that power to manifest as well. But again, with the magician card, it's one of those things where I think it should go hand in hand, or the high priestess card should come before it. It's just one of those things where I think we can fall into manifesting from our illusions if we don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Lori Murphy says, I think manifestation works the most when we really truly want what we are trying to manifest. I actually find the opposite has been true for me. The more I want something, the harder it is to get. Like, I have been trying to astral project for like
Mm-hmm.
10 years now, and I've tried all different approaches. I've tried using affirmations. I've tried programming my subconscious to believe that I can do this. And so far, I haven't been able to do it. And that's something that I really, really, really want to do and have been trying to do for 10 years. So I don't know. For me, I find the more I want something, the harder it is for me to get it. And often the things that I've been able to manifest have been things that I've felt kind of casual about, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Like there are things that, I mean, I want a lot of things, right?
Sure.
Probably aren't the best things, for me, because I'm still dealing with my programming. I'm not going to say I'm some guru who has like mastered it all. I'm totally
Yeah.
flawed,
Yeah.
but I yeah, I'm not getting that. It's
Yeah.
not coming to
Okay.
me. I really want it.
This is a nosy question, Will. What's something that you really want that you think is probably not something that you should want?
Um, I mean, I probably should not have. I think there's a limit on the amount of income that I actually should have,
Okay.
because I think that having the limitations that I have right now, I don't think I would be doing things in the world that I should be doing. Like, I probably would stop my YouTube channel. I probably I probably would just like relax, and I probably wouldn't have that fire in me to do
Right.
certain things. Actually, you know what? I wouldn't stop the YouTube channel because I really enjoy that. But I would quit my job.
Yeah.
But the thing is maybe that job, I'm learning a lot. I am learning a lot through that. I
Hmm.
am learning a lot from my job. And what would I be like? It goes back to that same scenario I gave you. What would I be like if I won $1 billion, several $1 billion right now, and looked at myself 10 years from now, versus if I didn't win that now? What would I do? What would be the difference? And a
Hmm.
part of me internally says that I'm not ready for that, because
Right.
I don't know that certain things about what I'm learning would kick in the same rate if I
Right.
could just sit back with those billions.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know if that's something that's right for me.
Right.
Although
I
it sucks and I hate saying that, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've had the same thought. I just have this feeling that no matter how many lottery tickets I buy, and I actually never buy lottery tickets for this reason, because I believe that no
Mm.
matter how many I buy, I will never win the lottery because that's just not my. And I actually know three people who have won the lottery, which is crazy. I know I don't know them like well, but I know of three people who've won massive amounts in the lottery. And anyways, I so it's possible to win the lottery. I just don't think it will ever be possible for me. It's not my fate. Like I'm just not meant to have that lifestyle. But that's really
Right.
interesting what you said, Will, about like the challenge of having to like go out and make money for yourself has actually put you on this path of like learning things that you wouldn't have otherwise learned or figured out had you not had to go out. I mean, you probably would have. I suppose you would have different challenges if you had billions of dollars. You'd have different challenges and different things that you'd be learning. Um, but I see what you're saying, and yeah, that's a really interesting thing to think about. And I used to I used to be a personal trainer, and I had some clients who were very like independently wealthy and didn't need to work. And they had, different streams of income, and they didn't need to go out and have jobs, and they were quite wealthy. And many of them were honestly kind of floundering, like trying to find a sense of purpose and meaning. And um yeah, it was interesting because I do think that, not that I think struggling is good, but I do think that sometimes like going out and trying to earn a living for yourself kind of does give you a sense of direction and purpose. And if you just take that away, a lot of people do kind of flounder.
Yeah. Yeah. I yeah. When I think back on the things that have happened to me, um, yeah, it would be hard to say that I would have wanted things to be differently. I mean, there are a couple of things that I wish didn't happen. Someone asked me one time, because the whole reason I got into tarot was I had these dreams about my dog being attacked, and then I didn't pay attention to them, and then my dog got attacked and was murdered, and then I decided, well, let me see what I can do to pay attention to these things. So I bought a tarot deck, started looking at tarot as a promise to this dog to say, okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to not ignore this anymore.
Yeah.
And so I got into it, but then someone asked me once, would you want, if looking back on your life, would you want everything to play out the same way so that you could be who you are? And I said yes, but then when I thought about it later, I was like, no, actually, I don't want my dog to die so that I can be this person that
Mm-hmm.
learns about tarot now.
Right.
So it's like, it's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know if I would have picked up a tarot deck.
Hmm.
So it's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think I've thought about this about when I discovered tarot too, and I think that I'm gonna guess that most people discover tarot and other things like tarot during times of struggle and strife, because that's kind of
Mm.
when I discovered tarot as well. I was in like a difficult time in my life. I feel like you would have picked up tarot anyway, though, Will. I feel like some other thing would have happened to you, and you would have been drawn to
Yeah.
tarot.
Yeah. I wish that would have been the case. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting how things just happen, and they happen in these ways that are just hard to understand, why people go through certain things. And you look at it and you think, man, I wish that could have manifested in a different way.
Hmm.
Um, and then some people say, well, there's lessons in life and things we have to learn. But I just don't understand what some people learn from some of the things they go through, like losing a child or losing a pet or losing a loved one. I just, is there another way? I just don't
Right.
understand I don't understand that whole concept of life lessons being tied to some of the things we go through. I think that, there has to be a limit to that. So when it comes to the law of a manifestation, I think, well, shouldn't it work in certain circumstances a little bit better? I mean,
Hmm.
and we can learn those lessons in different ways, like you said. Um, so those are the things that kind of bother me when I think about it. I think, it doesn't seem to be functioning in a way that, that lowers the amount of things that people are going through in the world. And I have
Hmm.
to be realistic about that because, I mean, people are going through a lot. I mean, there's people dying in wars right now. It's crazy. So it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, there's good things, but there's a whole lot of messed up stuff. So,
Right.
you wonder about that, and you wonder about our ability as a collective to actually dive into these abilities or whatever we can do
Hmm.
to change the course of history. But then again, there's that paradox between what would we all be if we didn't go through these things. So it's just weird. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, do you think, I hesitate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Do you think that the world is meant to be difficult by design and that we're not? Because I feel like in new agey circles, I feel like there's this concept that we're all supposed to raise our vibration and make the world this like beautiful, wonderful place, like this,
Mm.
transform the world into this wonderful thing. And then part of me
Yeah.
thinks, I like this idea. I like this. But I wonder if that isn't the purpose of Earth. I don't know. And yeah.
So what you first said, you said that the Earth was meant to be difficult.
Yeah.
Um, I think so, but my reason for that is very unusual, and I've
Uh-huh.
gotten into that before with other people, but I don't know if I want to bring that up. Um, and I think that we could talk about it some other time because I think that
Yeah.
you might understand because of some things that, well, for specific reasons, I won't go into that. But
Okay.
I just feel like it's a deep personal thing with me as to why that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've talked about it before, and then when I went back and thought about when I shared that, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that there's certain things that I feel like comfortable sharing online,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to share it online because there are some people that I think would understand it, but I think a lot of people won't understand
Yeah. And I
my
feel
thoughts on that.
uh I feel for you, Will, and I understand because that's why I said I hesitate to even say this because I feel like sometimes when you say things, people misinterpret it.
Right.
Like things can get misinterpreted and
Mhm.
yeah, that's the thing. Okay, so
I'll just put it this way. I think there's
yeah.
opposition, and I'll stop at that.
Yeah, right,
Mm.
right. Yeah. Um so okay, so to I'm just gonna see if there's any comments that I wanna say out loud here. I think I said most of them. I might have. Oh, interesting. Okay, Lori says, my husband took a class years ago and he did astral project and he didn't like it, but you're right, Kate, he didn't really care if he did it or not. That's really interesting. And I do think that there's something about sort of letting go. If you're trying to make something happen, just kind of letting go does sometimes help. Um Trev says, energy is so complicated. I wish there was a rule book to manifesting. I feel like there are books to manifesting. Who knows if, but they might not work 100% of the time.
Right.
Okay, so just to kind of, I don't know if you're ready to sort of wrap this conversation up or not, Will. I feel like we've
Yeah.
sort of explored all these different facets. Um, is there any like facet that we haven't explored that you want to explore before we kind of wrap up our convo?
No, I don't think so. I don't think the conversation really, I think it got a lot of stuff out into the open, like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of thoughts that I felt.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it was sort of therapeutic in a way for me to kind of like express that.
Yeah.
I feel that there are a lot of people out there that put up this idea of, oh, I'm all happy, I'm all love and light. But
Mm-hmm.
when I look at their lives or when I talk to them, there's a lot there that they're not willing to look at. And I think that's a
Right.
mistake. But
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. That's fine. Live your life, that's fine. And
Right.
I'm not trying to like, be a jerk about it or anything like that. But I
Yeah.
just feel like we have to be honest with ourselves. I was doing a video the other day on the lover's card. And one of the first things I mentioned, I said, be honest about what your internal struggles are. Be honest about who you are. Um, look at your passions, your desires, and express that to other people. Because if you put up the illusion, they don't really know you. And you can't really love something you don't know. If you love an illusion, you don't love the person, you love the illusion. And illusions crumble, they break, and that's what causes the pain. We need to be more open with each other. And I feel like I was able to be open here and really express that. Whether people agree with it or not, or whether they are uncomfortable or not, I'm at the point now in my life where I'm just like, I'm going to show you who I am.
Right. That was really well said. And I've never looked at the lovers that way before, but that absolutely makes sense about, yeah. And see, I have this sort of internal struggle with sometimes, like when you're referring to, like, you see people sort of projecting this image of love and light. And I find every time I go on social media and look at people's pages, everyone wants to project this image of success and happiness, or almost everyone. Um, and then you have the extreme opposite where people sort of document every detail of their struggle and stuff like that too. There's kind of that end of the spectrum. But
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people want to project this image of themselves being healthy, happy, successful, etc. And of course, the reality is that a lot of people, that's not true. That's kind of more of an illusion. And I think for me, when it comes to like opening up and sharing things, I hesitate to be really open and transparent because I don't want, for example, if I share something I'm really struggling with, I don't want people to then think of me as this person who's struggling, because
Right.
then I don't want to be like that person in their mind. Like, do you know what
Right.
I
Right.
mean?
Right. I know what you mean. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I try to have a little bit of a balance to it too. Like, I I try not I don't. There's a lot of stuff I don't know, and as far as the law of attraction is concerned, I wanted to convey the fact that there's a lot of stuff I don't get about it. I could easily come off in my life as someone that has mastered it. I could put up a video now and be like, I
Right.
found out the secret. Click
Yeah.
this now and get my program. And there'll be people that will buy it. But it's
Right.
like, I don't want to do that. I want to be like, I'm learning just like you're learning. I'm broken and trying to figure out things just like we're all are trying to figure out things. I'm
Hmm.
not all love and light and high vibration. I get in traffic sometime and get pissed off. I'm just a human. So I
Yeah.
try to just keep that frame of mind. But yeah, yeah. But this was good. I feel good having this
Yeah.
conversation because there was a lot of stuff that I needed to process, and that helped. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Thanks for chatting about this with me, Will, and thanks everyone who joined us and commented and participated. I think for me, the takeaway that I'm kind of taking away from this conversation, which is unexpected, I didn't expect to take this specific thing away, um,
Mm,
is the part about like what you said kind of in the beginning about the high priestess and the magician, how the high priestess should sort of come before the magician, and this
mm,
idea that instead of focusing on trying to manifest outward things, to first go, well, not that there's anything wrong with doing that, but first to go inward and do that
mm,
inner work of finding out, like, what do I truly desire? What am I
mm,
being called to do? Where am I what am I curious about? Where am I being pulled? And kind of
mm,
pay attention to that and kind of follow it. Because I think that when I look back over my life at the amazing things that I have managed to accomplish, or create, it's because I did that first. I did go inward and I followed kind of the direction that I felt pulled to.
mm.
And yeah, so I guess that's what I'm taking away from this
No,
conversation.
that's really good. And the last thing I'll say here is that I agree that they should be switched. And the thing is the reason why it's not is because when you get to the high priestess point and you go inward, a lot of times the shadow is what you encounter first. And you have
Right.
to get through that darkness to get to the light. And a lot
Mhm.
of times people bounce off the shadow. They're like, you
Mhm.
sit in meditation and a lot of crap comes up and you're like, oh no, this isn't
Right.
for me. I'm not, but
Yeah.
you have to persist. And once you
Yeah.
persist and you get to the core of it, it's beautiful.
Right.
But it's like it's hard for human beings a lot of times to be quiet in a quiet room and just sit long enough to where they
Hmm.
get to that point, because
Hmm.
shadow is, we deal with shadow in our lives all the time, and it comes up and we have to get through it, or you can't
Right.
get to that point.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's it.
It reminds me of this experience I had when I was meditating a few months ago. And I was in a deep state of meditation. And while I was meditating, I was having all these visualizations, and I was at the bottom of the ocean and I had this urge to go to the surface. But as I started to swim to the surface, I encountered like this layer of goo that I started to
Mm,
travel through. And as I went into this layer of goo, the goo became so thick and I couldn't breathe. And then I
mm,
realized, oh, I don't actually need to breathe for some reason. And so I just kept going. And I had this urge to just keep pushing through the goo. And then it became so thick and so dark and I couldn't see anything, and I began to panic, but I just kept going and going and going, and then I popped out through the other side, and all of a sudden
interesting.
it was like and then I popped out into the universe. And so then I was just floating in the universe, and it was this makes me sound kind of crazy. I was floating in the universe and it was all love. And it was just, I could feel the love of all the planets and the stars.
Mm,
And I was communicating with them. And I had this like epiphany that this is reality. And anything that I'm experiencing that isn't this is almost like a dream. It's like a another experience, but it isn't reality. Reality is this ocean of
mm.
love that we're sort of afloat in.
Wow,
And
that's so true.
it
That
just
happened
made
to
me
me
put
too.
things in. Did it really?
Yeah, but I wasn't doing it myself. I was working with someone. So I someone had contacted me about doing a it was almost like a regression, but it was more like an astral
Yeah.
travel type of thing. And we kind of regressed to some areas too.
Hmm.
And they had me visualize. And when I was visualizing, they had me go further and further, but I was going into space, not in the ocean. I was going out into space. And at
Hmm.
one point I hit this like wall of bubble gum. Like it was like sticky. I couldn't get through it.
Yeah.
And I was like, she was like, okay, well, just keep trying to push through that. And yeah, I pushed through it, and it was very different. It was almost like going from what I thought was real to like a real true light, right? It was
Hmm.
really weird. Yeah. But I had to get through that first. It was
Yeah.
really weird. But
Yeah.
it was tough to get through it though. But I got through it. I was like mentally like trying to like get through this like goo. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. Yeah. For
Mm,
me, it almost felt like I was going through the womb of the earth. Like it felt like
mm,
I was going through like an endometrial layer of like the earth's uterus. Like, and then I just
hmm.
like popped out on the other side into
That
the
is,
galaxies.
that is interesting. Huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's so cool that you had a similar a
Yeah, we'll have
similar
to,
experience.
yeah, we'll have to talk about that later a little bit
Uh,
more,
Trev
maybe
says
another time.
that's beautiful. I wonder if that love will ever be the norm on Earth someday. Well, I had some epiphanies in that experience about that. Um, yeah, I don't think it is, but I don't know. I don't know. That was just my experience in that particular
I,
meditation.
I have to be honest. I don't think that the Earth is on the same level as what that would be. I think the Earth has a
Hmm.
different purpose.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, the epiphany that I had in that experience was that the whole purpose of Earth was that it's the opposite of
Mm,
that. In the same way that like we might have a dream, like we'll have a nightmare, and the purpose of the nightmare was so you could like um work through a particular emotion and release it. Does that
mm.
make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I see that. Cool.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks TJ. Thanks Trevor, Bernadette, Rachel, Luna, Allison, Tina, everyone who is hanging out with us and joined us. Thank you so much for being here and for commenting and sharing your thoughts with us. And thank you, Will, for diving into this topic with me.
Yeah, it was fun.
I had fun today, so thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
See, I guess we should say where can people find you, Will, if they want to check out your stuff?
Oh, okay. So my YouTube channel is Atypical Tarot, And then I do have a website if you want tarot readings. So it's atypicaltarot.squarespace.com. I can't get the Squarespace off there for some reason. I've been trying to change that. But if you don't put .squarespace.com, you won't find me. So atypicaltarot.squarespace.com. Yep.
Okay. And you can find me on this YouTube channel, Daily Tarot Girl. You can also find me on my website, dailytarotgirl.com. I've got lots of fun tarot learning resources for you to check out if you're interested in learning about tarot. And yeah, that's all for now. So thanks again for joining us. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their weekend.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, bye.